All right, everybody is coming in. Welcome. How is everybody today? As always, with all of our sessions, if you are able, I would greatly appreciate you putting your cameras on so that we can see your faces. Know that you're with us. Thank you so much. Excellent. Excellent. Well, today's the big day. You all have been working really hard the past couple of sessions. I'm going to take 2 minutes to just kind of review as people are continuing to enter in the goals. Why are we all together for these sessions? What are the goals? And the goals were, yes, to learn some STEM concepts, to learn how to work together as a team, to learn how to problem solve, to increase the interest that you already have in STEM and your awareness and ability to really put forth that effort to do the research and then come up with a solution with the people in your group, or in this case, in your company. Okay. So today, to kind of just review the challenge, this was our original slideshow that we went through on the first day. But this was, whoops, sorry about that. This was our challenge. Design a waste-free city that uses the principles of a circular economy. It's heavy stuff, but I guarantee that all of you in a group went through each of these steps to come up with a solution. And I'm really excited to hear about all of them today. And then what I want you to do, if you're not presenting, is I want you to really participate and listen. Listen first, and then I want you to participate. I want you to ask your friends. I want you to ask the students in the other groups questions about their presentation. Ask them to clarify something. Ask them why they chose something. Whatever questions you may have, that's an important piece of this as well. And we'll talk about some of the deep human skills, those essential skills that'll be necessary as you enter the workforce. So are you excited? If I had a drum, I could do like a drum roll, but I don't. So we will just go ahead and start. I know we have Mark McCullough with us back today. Mark, if you want to wave, he was with us during session 1, as well as all of our Waters employees that you have gotten to meet, some better than others, throughout our work sessions together. So I think what we will do is I am going to call out a student name, and then everybody in that group, you get to be the first ones to present today. So Beck Jenkins, everybody in Beck's group, so Andrew, Natalia, who is going to screen share today from that group? If you could just unmute yourself and say your name. Who's going to screen share?
Beck's gonna screen share.
Beck is going to screen share. Okay. So let's find Beck. Where's Beck? We just need to make Beck a co-host. There he is. Whoops. He's all set. Perfect. All right. So I would like to know, before you get started, the name of your company. Anybody in that group? What's the name of this company that we're going to be hearing from today?
Or the Futuristics.
The Futuristics. And I like the creative spelling.
Thank you.
All right, I am going to give all attention to you. I'm going to be quiet, and you can go ahead and share your solution with us.
Okay, so first we wanted to start off with eliminating air pollution, which we believe is a really big issue in cities today. So first we would plan on including more plants in the community, such as trees, because plants absorb the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere for photosynthesis and they release oxygen. And like I mentioned earlier, a major reason why air pollution in cities today exists in such large amounts is because a lot of the CO2 is being released and it isn't being taken in. And then another solution was that we wanted to include energy efficient transportation methods, such as electric vehicles. And electric vehicles function when electricity from a charging station is stored in a battery. And we decided to choose this solution because they can replace gas-powered vehicles, which are responsible for a lot of carbon emissions, especially when they're used on a regular basis.
No, you're not muted. I hear you. But yeah. So I base mine off of infrastructure, and so the first one is solar panels. So solar panels help reduce the cost of electricity, and the average amount of money saved from solar panels
If you
for
are
20
not
years is
talking right now, we're all getting a lot of feedback, and I'm sure you all are too. If you could make sure that your mic is muted. Perfect. Now, the one person that's speaking, let's try unmuting and seeing if that helps.
Yeah, so Eric, we're just having a lot of bad feedback in our area, so we're trying to figure that out with we got our librarian who's smarter than me, but we're trying to fix that here.
Thank you, Mr. Stars.
so like I was saying, the average amount of saved from solar panels for 20 years is
May I offer a suggestion? Everyone else in your group, can you please mute your cameras so only one person is actively speaking at once, just to prevent the background noise, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Yasef.
Well,
All right, Erica, we had a nice little presenting thing that we're just getting rid of and seeing if that fixes things. So we're not, like, when I'm talking, people can hear me, right? And we're not hearing an echo?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So Futuristics is going to go back to where they were. And sorry for the, well, we'll just go on from here.
Perfect. Thank you so much. No worries.
sorry about that, guys. So like I was saying, the average amount of money saved from solar panels for 20 years is 28,000. And solar panels can go pretty much anywhere. They can go on flat surfaces, buildings, parking lots. And solar panels completely eliminate carbon emissions immediately after install. So this can be really helpful when, eliminating fossil fuels. And my next little topic is roads made from recycled plastics. This will minimize plastics in oceans, landfills, and rivers. Plastic roads are incredibly cheaper than asphalt roads, therefore reducing, residents' taxes a little more. Plastic roads can be engineered to be more durable for conditions like snow, water, and fire. My next little topic is 3D printed homes. The pros are that they're easily built and they cost a lot less. 3D printed homes can also be engineered to be more durable for natural disasters. And the cons are it may replace many jobs, sadly, and the styles of regular homes will be eliminated due to the way the printer works.
Right. So
Andrew, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
It's Beck's turn.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you, Beth.
All right. So I was thinking like a shopping experience of like buying something in bulk where you'd bring in your own containers and then you put like food and other items into that container, and that would vastly lower the waste of single-use packaging for items. Same thing goes for water bottles, where you have like those like drink machines you find in like some fast food restaurants. You have that, and it would like charge you for how much liquid you take out of it. And then it's also putting a bunch of recycling centers and then having one recycling center dedicated to electronic waste, because that is one of the fastest growing forms of waste and would only get far worse as the years go on.
That's it.
Okay. So that was our first presentation. Questions. I know I have questions, but I'll wait. Who has some questions for Beck, for Andrew? And was Natalia with you all today? Is she here?
Yes, I was.
Oh, okay, excellent. So if you have a question or a comment for anybody from this company, go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and let's just have a conversation.
I have a quick question, as far as the solar panels, once they're depleted, is that something you thought about recycling, and how would you go about doing that?
What was that? Sorry.
So, solar panels basically last for 20 years, you deplete them. Is there a plan to recycle your solar panels? How would you go about that?
Okay, so I mentioned that we would have a recycling plant for electronic waste, which would include solar panels. So you could take scrappable parts from those solar panels to make new ones or other electronics.
So reuse some and then recycle the electronics, right?
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. Okay. Great.
Great question. Other questions or comments that you want to share regarding with this group?
I had a question on the trees. On the first slide, one of the initiatives was planting more trees, and I tried to do some research myself as to what types of trees actually consume the most carbon. One of the things I found out was that bamboo grows very fast, so it does consume a lot of carbon. But I'm just wondering if anyone in the group had given any thoughts to that or has interest on researching that more.
Yes, I think that would be very interesting to research and find out more about the benefits of bamboo.
Okay, could whoever's screen sharing, do you want to just stop your screen share so that we can see everybody during this conversation piece? Please.
I did stop the screen share.
It looks like Beck's screen share is still up.
Zoom says I'm not. Oh,
There we go. Thank you
there was
so
a button on
much.
the top that I didn't know about. Sorry.
No, this is a learning experience for all of us, right? So no worries. Thank you so much. All right. Any of our students have questions? Go for it. Or a comment. Something that they did really well. I noticed that the slides themselves, I liked the way they were visually appealing, the way that they were set up in little sections. It made it very easy to kind of follow along with the presentation. I think when we are making presentations, we always want to keep in mind, we want it to be interesting, and we want people to be able to easily follow. So I thought that was a real positive. But I do have a question. I know some groups were larger than others. There were only 3 of you in this group. Was that a challenge or not? And if it was, why? And if it wasn't, why wasn't it? Why was it easy?
Honestly, we didn't really think it was that hard because we all kind of just worked together to create our own topics and kind of just, work on that together.
So you did it like a divide and conquer type
Yeah.
strategy? Is that what you
Yes.
used? Okay. Waters employees, is that a typical strategy that's used in your day to day?
Yeah, it's definitely something that happens all the time. So we'll have cross-functional teams working on a project or working on some aspect of something, and there's always a little bit of, okay, you go off and do your piece because that's a science thing, or the marketing person will go off and design infographics and do the marketing aspect of it, and then it all just winds up. We actually have people dedicated to make sure everything lines up and all the timelines are met and everything. So that division of labor is very typical, at least from where I sit at Waters for typical projects.
Great, thank you, Ken. All right, let's move on to our next company. Nice job. If everybody
Nice
wants
job.
to give a silent thumbs up or clap for this group, nice work. Let's go with Aiden Osborne and his group. So that's Aiden, Aubrey, Elias, and Timothy, Zach. All right. And what is the name of your company? Who are we hearing from?
Hi, yeah, we are BMR Solutions.
Excellent.
Start slideshow. There we go. Can you guys see this? Awesome. All right. BMR Solutions. This is our objective, to create a clean and waste-free city with a circular economy. These were just kind of our points that we were organizing ourselves with. Here are laws in place to be to enforce the waste-free city. We will have martial law will be enforcing the laws, and there will be laws. We will have there will be places and jobs to accomplish these goals, like in the factories and stuff that we will be repurposing trash and all the items that we can repurpose. Repurpose plastics. Plastics can be made into rope and like string and stuff. So we are going to be having these plants where we turn all of the plastic that we've separated from the trash, and we are going to turn it into rope and string to be repurposed. So then we are going to try and clean the rivers by making nets from the repurposed string to try and take out as much of the physical pollutants in the water. So like the trash and all the stuff that's just kind of been thrown in there. Repurposed car parts. Cars are a lot of times just thrown in junkyards and left there to rot. So we're going to be taking all of the cars and repurposing the rubber from the tires. We're going to be trying to resalvage as much of the metal as we can and use it for either like construction or the power options that we are going to touch upon in a second. Yeah, so that's for the car parts. All right, so our clean and recycled power. Solar panels, molten salt generators, and the solar batteries. The turbines, wind turbines and water wheels. Nuclear power, which is the traveling wave reactors, and we'll get rid of all current nuclear waste. And then incinerators, waste incinerators, and then biomass power. All right, yeah. So molten salt generators will make it so the energy is not used in the day and will be used at night. The wind turbines will use the wind that is created at sea for power. The water turbines will use the natural tides to create power. The TWR nuclear power will consume all the nuclear waste left in the United States and will not require the U-235 enrichment process. And the biomass incinerators will burn up the rest of the waste to create power from it. And that is all we have.
Great, thank you. Elias, was that you that was speaking?
No, it's Aiden, but
Aiden. Excellent. Okay, thank you, Aiden. Well, I will say that you definitely spoke loudly and clearly. You were easy to understand, so well done, and thank you for taking on that leadership role of kind of communicating and sharing your company's solution. I apologize. I am working from home. What questions or comments do we have? Feel free to unmute.
Yes, good job, BMR Solutions. I do have a question for you. So let's just hypothetically say I'm an investor and I'm looking to, take on one of the companies that's presenting their solution. Why would I hire, or why would I select your company?
We have really thought through all of the individual processes that it would take to create the waste-free city. And we believe that if these things were to take place, that we would achieve that goal.
Okay, anyone else in your group want to respond?
She might go choose a different company, a competitor.
Right.
I don't know if they can because they're enforcing martial law. I think you pretty much have to go with them. Is that right?
You make a great point.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, BMR Solutions, and wonderful job again.
Thank you.
Students, it's your turn. What questions do you have or comments? Don't all speak at once. Go ahead, Savannah. You don't have to, just unmute yourself and feel free.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I was just wondering if you guys had anything else on like the laws. Like you just said, like martial law. Are you gonna follow your location, like what country you're based in, or do you mean like those country laws?
This is all Zachary.
Sorry, what was it about martial law?
Martial law is what we're going to use to enforce it. If it's in the same state.
So martial law is basically when the military enforces it, like where the military has all the power. So it's just you can't do anything because the military will make you do it. That would just be enforcing the laws that that we made for the city to make sure everything's recycled and stuff like that. And to like restrict using coal and oil power.
To kind of go off what he was saying, we're going, the specific laws that we're going to be kind of using is anything that companies would be doing to create waste that is put into the environment and not recycled would be kind of restricted, and they wouldn't be allowed to do that. So that's where we were thinking with that.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from anybody?
I have a
Waters?
question. Yes. So it's martial law. I think that catch everybody's eye, especially you put in the first slides. Do we consider this martial law to be stay on long term? Or this is just the initial to force people into a good environmental friendly habit and the process in the company? Because I would hope, in the long term, when people realize this solution is beneficial to everyone and doesn't really cut down their bottom line, and people would be willing to reinforce those principles instead of have to be forced or, in a sense, being gun pointed. What's the thoughts of ease off the martial law once the culture change?
Yeah, that was more of like an initial thing. Like I agree that it was like kind of something to get everything started and get like the gears turning for the society to start. And then, like you said, once everything starts to work and people understand that it works, it would ease up and it would become less of like a restricted thing. Once people understand that the system works and that it is good for the environment, the planet, and it is something that is like useful over time.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions for this
I do
group?
have one quick comment, and this applies to all the groups. I think it would be for the couple of groups that have spoken already and for the rest who's going to speak after this, I encourage all of you also to think about all of the cons for the solutions that you are proposing, because I think a lot of the solutions we've heard so far, and I'm sure the ones I will hear in the next few presentations as well, they're all great solutions, but right now they're not being implemented for specific reasons. So I think as you propose the solutions, it would be interesting to also hear your thoughts on why it's not something that's being done now and what might be the potential downsides of implementing some of the solutions that are being proposed so that it's a more balanced conversation.
Thank you. Excellent point. Okay. Thumbs up. Quiet claps for this company. Well done. All right. Next, let's take Dylan Brady. So that's Dylan, Kalani, Destiny, Aiden. Let's hear from this next company. How are we going to clean up this city?
Presenting. I'm going to present. Desktop. All right. Good evening, everyone. Our group is called A Green City, and why are we here? We are here as a group to help planet Earth become a healthier and greener planet. Our goal is to build a city, not just another city that creates tons and tons of pollution, but a city that is green, and a city that our atmosphere that's keeping our atmosphere clean, and the world more and colorful experience. So, where does pollution come from? Pollution is created from a lot of things. Pollution is made from mobile sources like cars, buses, airplanes, trains, and etc. Pollution is made from stationary sources like power plants, factories, and oil refineries. Pollution can even come from natural sources like wildfires and volcanoes. According to the US News, a report made in 2021, researchers have found that energy usage for residential, commercial, and industrial electricity made up to 80% of emissions in Europe and North America. More than 30% of the emissions came from road travel, and about 1/3 of the cities analyzed. Only less than 15% of emissions came from trains, boats, and air travel. So, is it possible to have no pollution? According to Climate Trade, the top 10 countries that release the most amount of CO2 have a gross of 24,382 million tons of CO2 released per year. The short answer for this question is no. There's no possible way for pollution to not be released or made, but it is possible to make places that create a very small amount of CO2. So how can we reduce the pollution? So we can come together and reduce the amount of pollution that is being released into our atmosphere. Many ways that are easier to control are when you drive a car or take the train. If you don't have to drive a car and you can walk, you should take that exercise. You can also carpool with other people like your friends and family. And this will help with not using so many cars that can create more pollution. Some larger things that we can help play a role are changing our household items to be more green and eco-friendly. We have to figure out our necessities and luxuries. So our necessities include healthcare, energy sources, clothes, food and water, public transportation, and emergency services. Some of our luxuries include entertainment, house accessories, jewelry, luxury cars, boats and planes, personal products, makeup, cologne, and heat and air conditioning. So what are our ideas? After discussing what our necessities are, we came to a conclusion that that may help bring us help bring us city and eco-friendly. And after many possible actions, sorry, that we could have taken, we chose to solve pollution from our energy sources. A lot of pollution comes from our energy sources, so why not fix the main source? Power plants can create major amounts of CO2 emissions. With solar panels, they release on average 20% less CO2 than coal power plants. By placing solar panels on buildings, houses, and building a few solar farms, the emissions produced will be less and the energy produced will be greater. Solar panels aren't the only way we can receive renewable energy. Hydropower can create more energy for the needed city. By installing a dam where we can collect the hydropower will help give the city more energy and reduce the amount of emissions. Another renewable energy source that is available is the wind. By installing wind turbines, this will help reduce air and water pollution. So doing this, we will have to encounter some challenges. What are these challenges? Transferring natural energy is one of these challenges because only so much energy can be transferred for For a major city, the energy resources would have to be relatively close to receive the most efficient energy. Shortage of natural resources. While switching to natural resources may be a major benefit, they also have major problems. Some major problems are the shortage of the needed natural resources. And for example, no wind means no wind turbines, and no sun means no solar energy. This also includes the personal needs of people in the city, which can cause more of a shortage of natural resources. Necessity of energy. The bigger question is how much energy will we need to give to the major city? There might be a chance we will have trouble with running the city if we aren't getting enough energy. And wildlife outside of the system. While we start to think about installing all these solar farms, wind turbines, and hydropower plants, we have to think about the wildlife that this may affect. So putting this into effect, the best place to install our resources of energy would be on houses and buildings for solar panels, leaving room for wind turbines and fields. Rivers and lakes would be resources for dams. Finally, open fields would be used for wind turbines. This would be the best solution for installing these power sources to help feed the city. Another natural resource that is available is called geothermal energy. Geothermal energy is when we collect the heat from the ground or earth. Geothermal energy works by collecting hot water from the earth or collecting steam from the earth. And then either the water or steam will go into a system that turns a turbine. The motion of this turbine will then help create energy in a generator, and that energy will be transferred and used. Geothermal energy can also be used to heat houses. According to Guy's and St. Thomas charity located in the UK, the leading cause of pollution in the city is because of the heating of buildings construction and traffic related to it. And the use of naturally collected energy wouldn't be used for cooling and heating houses. The use of the naturally collected energy would be used for cooling and heating houses, public transportation, and powering buildings. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Dylan. Thanks for taking on the leadership role for your group and kind of putting yourself out there and presenting. Well done. Questions or comments for a green city?
Yeah, Erica, if I could.
Yep.
Hi, Erica, it's Mark. If I could just make a comment, great job on the presentation. What caught my ear and my eye early on is some of the references that you used that sort of make an emotional connection to the topic, right? I think early on when your first slide, you referenced that your vision was for making a more colorful world, a more colorful city. I think that type of emotional connection, most moms and dads and brothers and sisters and everyone else would say, boy, that's a good vision to have. That's what you aspire to. So immediately I was taken in to the presentation. The other thing that you referenced is, I think in one of your notes, you referenced coming together, because this is a challenge that many people have to work on together. And as you get older and as you make your way into the workplace, what you're going to find is that there's this concept called systems-based thinking, where one person trying to solve a problem is very difficult, but when you have a number of folks working together, and you, as Nick Hunge said earlier, when you're mindful of what happens when you make a decision and who it else impacts, as you dig into that a little bit, it's just going to help you. So I thought it was I like the connection that you made, that the layperson would understand. We all know this is a challenge, but again, I thought this was very well done.
Thank you.
Who else has comments or questions for a green city?
Yeah, I just had a question. So where did you plan to create your city? Did you think about a location and what that would cost to make it there? Or no.
So we did think about location, And this was definitely a challenge to what resources we could get. We could locate the city in New England, and then that would have a lot of the resources I mentioned. One resource that would be a challenge would be the geothermal energy, which is heat from the ground. As we know, New England can have a very cold and hard ground, so this resource would be a challenge to receive.
Excellent. Thank you, Dylan. Other comments, questions?
I want to make a comment that I like the slides you put the challenges there. The way we look at a challenge should not be the reason that we don't do it. However, the challenge would help us when we consider solution. We think about things that's not the focus center of our solution. For example, you mentioned wildlife can be affected by some of the energy resource you proposed. This way will help us when we were designing. We are mindful of those things outside of our initial focus and make sure that we take consideration to reduce any impact to wildlife. I really like that part. A lot of time we think about the challenge as a negative. It's not negative. It's actually help us to think more thoroughly to have a more round-up solution. So I really like that part. One thing I want to make a suggestion is a way to have long paragraph. What you had in the slides can be put in a speaker note that only speaker can see and you can still present. But put your solution in bullet point probably is more clear for people to see. So that's one suggestion I'm making. Thank you. It's a great presentation.
Thank you.
Others?
Yeah, I wanted to say, I thought it was interesting how you narrowed down your scope of and prioritized energy. I'm just wondering if you had kind of it was great you included like statistics on what the largest amount of carbon sources were. I think it was on the initial slide, and I was wondering if you used any type of like problem solving framework to do that. I'm going to put the Pareto principle in the chat and a little link to a website, and just let you. I thought that was great anyway. So if you had any comments on that, that would be neat.
So for the CO2 emissions, I found a website that had the top 10 most, like the countries that had the most amount of CO2 emissions. And reading this slide. Is it? Are you talking about the on average 20% less?
It might have been an earlier slide. This one.
Oh, okay. So about the electricity compared to like regular. Oh, okay. So according to the U.S. News and report made in 2021, researchers have found that energy usage for residential, commercial, and industrial electricity made up to 80% of emissions in Europe and North America.
Yep.
So yes, I found that this information roughly connected to our energy resources, because a lot of pollution comes from travel, from like commercial airplanes and road and train and boat, and a lot of this could be changed and turned into electricity, because as you can see, the more fossil fuels for, well, fossil fuels will be, excuse me, fossil fuels emit more CO2 than electricity. So this is supported by claim for where does pollution come from and why it's such a big problem.
Yep. Yeah, no, I thought that was really great, that process and how you kind of narrowed down your priority of what to, attack, as opposed to trying to do everything. Thank you.
All right. Well, great job. Thumbs up, quiet little clap for a green city. And I should have mentioned this earlier, and many of you probably already know, but maybe not everybody. In your upper right-hand corner, if you kind of click on view, as people are presenting, if you kind of click on the side-by-side speaker option, you're going to be able to always see like who's talking, whether we're doing like the Q&A comments or presenting. So that's an option for you. All right, our next group is going to be Isabel, Ryan, that's with Jared, Natalie, Savannah. You're up. So feel free to share your screen.
Right. I'm going to be the one sharing.
Okay.
Can you guys see that? Hold on, it's loading.
Yes.
Perfect. So we are Gen Green Incorporated. Obviously, it's by me, Natalie, Elijah, and Jared. So obviously our goal was 100 years in the future, creating a waste-free and pollution-free city with a circular economy. So right now, obviously, we use something more linear where we're making a lot of waste. So this would be a really huge jump into the future. So that's why 100 years would be really ideal. So once we figured out that, we went on to research things like energy and water consumption and how much population and building, clothing and food, etc. And then we obviously all broke down those systems and tried to get out as much waste as we could. So like, obviously, here's our research, and we were aware that this project would take years to complete, seeing as it's such a big task starting from the bottom up, and also just the fact that things could change. So the first thing we had to figure out entirely was what a circular economy was. So we know we're stuck in a linear waste cycle. We create products, they're used and then trashed, as seen in that infographic on the bottom. And as much as we try to recycle as a society, only an astonishing 91% of plastic is actually recycled and reused. Whereas in a circular economy, it's built on the understanding of how this waste affects us and how it's put into other places in the world rather than used in a more renewable and clean way. And so the circular economy just takes that idea and then brings everything like make, use, recycle together to make it all flow correctly.
So my biggest thing to research was where we want the location to be. We wanted to find somewhere where we can start with like the least amount of pollution to begin with, so that we have like less of a challenge like working up, and then we want to expand out. But so when I did research based on like pollution and like natural resources, we found Sweden to be like the most abundant in natural resources, and it's already going green. It's one of the most sustainable countries because like they've imported things like electric buses to lower carbon dioxide and other air pollutants. And so by 2045, they will have reduced their emissions by 85% by getting them to the final 100%. 93% of their energy is already recycled or made by renewable resources, and heavily cut emissions by implementing the fossil fuel tax in 1995. The circular economy has been addressed to Parliament since 2015. So it's just been like the most like reasonable like place to work with to start off with. And this is just like a little map. Like Sweden does have like a good amount of natural resources, but obviously we're gonna need other ones. So we're gonna like be importing other like resources from places like China, India, and like South Africa, because they also are abundant in natural resources that we will need to build our city.
All right, so one of the biggest things we struggled with was knowing that in a city, the population is obviously going to be large, and creating something green in the housing aspect was a super huge challenge, because so much of what we do in our houses is create waste. So I know that Elijah found some ways to make these more green houses. So we could have houses made within trees, and instead of cutting them down, however, we would build the houses in and around them. So this would help with cutting down CO2 emissions, and it would also lessen the amount of energy used. You're not using heating or electrical or things like that. Instead, you'd be using passive solar heating, which helps eliminate the use. And so you would just place some windows towards where the sun rises, and that lets the heat warm the house. And then of course the natural shading that the trees already use. And there's no need for AC that way. But we also know that this is going to be tough when it gets cold in Sweden. So there are areas for other housing where we have high rises that take up less space, but with more living opportunities. And then obviously these housing units would have solar energy or something along those lines.
My major part was like the energy source in the next two slides. The water, it's going to be a solar water hybrid.
Oops, sorry.
1,000 homes or businesses will require 32 acres of land for solar power city. Increasing the business and houses would decrease the ability to farm land. With this, there needs to be a law rule for how many houses or businesses a single person or an individual family can have. While solar is not a hybrid of a water wheel could be used in case of storms, flash weather, or a charge or shutdown. We could possibly make this to a water treatment center and have a runoff water that goes to water wheel to gain power. Laws of government function, it would follow the Sweden Constitution added with local government figures. The laws or taxes seen below that would be added with Sweden Constitution. Ban on hunting animals except invasive or overpopulated. One building owned by a single person. Ban vehicle idling. Ban all types of pollution, such as from factories. Taxes would be like on 750 gallons of water per week, and if over, homeowner will be taxed a fee of $100 a time. Companies would be taxed half of products cost if plastic packaging is used. Vehicles and equipment. Currently, hybrid cars are equally as friendly as electric cars, but the resources needed to build hundreds of them adds up. Also, the batteries needed along with other parts aren't reusable. So electric cars seem better, but they aren't as effective as gas hybrid. They may not make the CO2 emissions, but the battery, motors, and electronics are limited resources, and some aren't renewable. Because of this, hybrid vehicles may be the better alternative. Batteries mined in lithium is a problem because based off water pollution damage, also as little as 5% of the lithium batteries are recycled. Manufacturing, batteries alone account for 10 to 70% of the green, 10 to 70% of the greenhouse emissions, resulting in the entire production of the electric vehicle. Charging, they would be charged by electric power grid. That would most likely be powered by fossil fuel in another city.
All right, so for recycling and composting, Elijah did a lot of the research on this one. But so not only will recycling and composting save materials and energy, but it will also lower like CO2 emissions. Things like plastic and the things that can't be recycled or composted, like trash, will not be created in the first place because we're trying to like have like the same reusable things in our system. Recycling will be required in like all of the households, businesses, and basically like everything will have recycling like with where they are. everything recycled will be remade into something new and reused. Like glass bottles can be made into windows for housing, and then many things like plastic and packaging can be used in water degradable materials. Composting, every house will also have composting bins. 25% of our trash can be composted, yet things like that can't be composted, things like citrus fruit peels, onion scraps, and more can be fed to like livestock. So we also have that. Yeah.
So the big thing that I focused on was just narrowing down the cost and trying to get like a rough estimate of what this would take. Obviously, our company would do a lot of funding, and since going green is so important, we think that we could get funds from people who want to move into the city. As odd as it sounds to have to buy into a city, I think in the long run, they would see it as something you have to do, because you know that it's going to cost so much to get there, like the way you want, no pollution and zero waste and stuff like that. So I think they would understand. But when we broke down the cost of land in Sweden, we found that on the high range, it would be $4,800 per acre. And then we based it off of a population that you need in a city like Worcester. So in a population for that would be like 200,000 people. And with all the housing and things we need about 30,000 acres. And multiply the two, you get $144 million just for land alone. As far as buildings go, we want to have those 10-story high-rises in that water treatment center. And the 10-story high-rise, to build one for materials and not even including labor, would be $10,500,000 per home, which obviously is a hefty cost. And then as well, with what Jared was planning for the water treatment center, upwards of 11 million. It depends on what materials we use to make the water treatment center and location and labor and everything like that. And then finally, just the recycling process. It's around $1,000 per ton of recycled material to get rid of and use in other spots. And we just had some other facts that couldn't really be broken down into sections, but other things that if you're going to move into the city, or if you're going to want to give funding to our company, things like you would want to know about our city. So we know that the population would be of up to 200,000. Just as far as energy and water purposes, you can't have more than that. All our structures would be made of high amounts of recycled materials, as much as we could do, including metal and wood. For water, we're reusing gray water from laundry and dishes that can be pumped back into the water treatment center and cleaned yet again. We're just not sure on the specs of how often that can be cleaned and reused. As far as produce and stuff like that, local farms would be used to decrease transportation costs, and as well as CO2 emissions from vehicles that may not be eco-friendly. When you have, as well in the city with roads and lights and things, that takes energy throughout the day because of you just have it constantly going. So we would try to go for motion censored lights on like buildings and stuff like that. So that way they're at least on the outside. So we can, one, limit light pollution, but also make sure we're limiting our energy use. Water burials is something I know that Elijah had looked into. A lot of indigenous tribes use water burials to limit the CO2 emissions from, say, like burning, or then burial also in the ground would be something that would not be super eco-friendly. So water burials is something we have looked into. We would receive, as far as clothes go, we're receiving shipments of used clothes, so all vintage apparel unless it needs to be brand new. And then more transportation stuff. We have public buses that Sweden is using. They can have bike racks, since the city will mostly be using bikes to limit the amount of cars, obviously. And then hybrid bikes that can be powered by battery, and obviously just normal pedal bikes. But we know that in Sweden alone right now, they just switched over almost completely to eco-friendly buses and energy efficient buses to make sure to limit those CO2 emissions. And this was just our sources page.
Okay. Well done, Gen Green Incorporated with Elijah, Jared, Natalie, and Savannah. One of the things that kind of popped out to me that I will just quickly share is, we talked about all the 7 steps of problem solving. Right away, this company made sure they understood what the problem is. What exactly is the challenge? It was very clear that you took the time to really understand that by the way that you kind of shared and presented the whole idea of a circular economy versus a linear one. So well done. Others?
I have a question. I thought on one of the slides you had mentioned the law would be to ban all pollution. So what would your plans be for getting natural resources from other countries to your city?
I think that would be somewhere we have to hire our own drivers or find a more eco-friendly version and work with the other countries to get their materials to us. I think that would honestly be a lot of communication between us two, and it would definitely take a little while to get that down. I know something that we talked about when we were creating this plan, just the fact that there's going to be most definitely in the beginning, because people aren't going to be working like we are. No one's going to be 100% pollution, zero waste. How we are. So it's a lot of communication. They have to understand where we're coming from and able to make that plan with us if they want to work with us.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, Erica, I just what caught my ear again, well done guys, was your frequent use of data and metrics. You can't really improve what you don't measure. So the fact that you had expected outcomes that you wanted to get and you knew what the numbers were telling you, right? It's more difficult to find that information, but when you really put your heart and head to it, and you find the data that supports your, your hypothesis, you can usually end up convincing somebody. Usually. So well done on the use of data and metrics and knowing what you wanted your outcome to be.
Thank you.
Any other questions for this company? Okay, well done. Next up, we have John, Haley, Taylor, Zaria.
Hello. So
Hello.
today, me and Taylor, John and Zaria are not here, unfortunately. So it is just us. Okay, Taylor, you can take over.
So our location is in Corpus Christi, Texas. The name of our city is Olympus, and our company name is Wasteless.
So collectively, as a group, before we even started, we knew that in order for the city to be functional, we would need different jobs and occupations so it can run smoothly. So we just kind of came up with some little animations, and these are all like the jobs that we would need. So like teachers, farmers, factory workers, police, veterinarians, mail workers, doctors, firefighters, and scientists. So it's pretty similar to like what we have now. We knew that would still be necessary in the city that we were creating.
For transportation and roads, we're gonna use stone roads because they last like a long time. Or recycled concrete and asphalt, we're gonna use electric vehicles because they don't produce pollution. Cheap and accessible bikes and roads / walkways that can accommodate to them. And we're also going to use horses, and people are gonna ride horseback.
Yeah, and then Zaria, who's not here, she made a little table right here. So this would be kind of how our transportation would look like. So it'd be mostly made up of bikes and horses. So everything would kind of be slowed down, but it would definitely help in the long run. The next thing that we thought of was the Omni processor. So this is a machine that takes in waste and it converts it into drinking water and electricity. This breaks down the raw sewage into component parts of water and biomass to boil the water, which then makes it safe to drink. And then we kind of have a little overview of how that kind of works to the right here.
Food and water. We're gonna be using farming and fishing and fertilize the soil. We're using compost. Also animal waste. And the benefits of
composting are that it enriches the soil, but also reduces the need for chemical fertilizers. And then we talked a lot about what we need to eliminate and what we also need to incorporate in our city. So we knew right away that like single-use products were probably not the best option just because it's like a one and done deal. So we knew that we wanted to reuse and recycle. But then we thought a lot of people, if they don't see the change happening, they're not really going to care. So we talked about maybe even having like an incentive to influence more people. I know we see them at like grocery stores sometimes. If we go recycle water bottles, we'll get change back. So we were thinking something along those lines, just to even give out more of a bigger incentive, so people are really wanting to recycle. And then we were talking about reducing and eliminating plastic almost completely. When we did our research, we found that like plastic was one of the main sources of like the emissions and the pollution that we saw in our cities. And yeah, I think that is it for our presentation.
Nice, well done.
Thank you.
So during this process, so who's here with us, Haley and
Taylor?
Taylor. During this process, and I know you're missing a couple members from your group today, but that's okay. What was the most, from your perspectives, what was the most challenging portion of this challenge?
I think figuring out where to start really kind of got us almost overwhelmed because we were all kind of going in different places and it was such a big overview. So to kind of pinpoint, all right, we're going to start here and then we're going to build from that. I feel like we had a little bit of trouble, but once we got our footing, we were really able to dive into the details and figure out where to go next.
Excellent, excellent. Taylor, did you have anything to add to that or?
Yeah, I feel like once we like found out where we're gonna put it, like we chose Texas because like Texas had like good like soil, it's good for agriculture.
John was very passionate about Texas location, so if he were here, I know he'd really let everyone know. But he was really pushing for Texas.
And that brings up another dynamic when you're working in a group, right? Like disagreements,
Yeah.
or somebody has one thought and somebody else has another thought. How did you handle that? How did you overcome those challenges?
I think being in like the group before, it was nice because we had so many different perspectives and opinions. So like, if someone had one idea and then someone had a contradicting idea, I think we'd kind of just like explain it and then see things from their point of view. That way we'd be able to understand them more. And then overall, I think once we heard what everyone had to say, it's a lot easier to agree because we saw all the different points. So I think once John gave us all his points about Texas, I think we were all like, okay, that makes sense. And we all agreed that was a good place for our city to be.
Excellent. So a lot of listening, a lot of strategizing. Well done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Others?
Thank you.
Comments, questions? Well, I think, girls, you must be, your company is going to be very well visited, very well bought into, because if there are no questions, that just means they're all going to like come in groves, right? All right. Well,
I just wanted to ask, do any of you ride horses? Is there anyone in the group who rides horses now?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I know we talked about that a lot because we went back and forth like how reasonable is that actually, like having, you're going to have all ages in a city, you're going to have younger children, then you're going to have older people, like how is that going to be realistic? So I think then we brought up like carriages and different ways, and I think it all comes down to like our main goal is just like, even if it was a little bit extreme, we just wanted to eliminate as much waste and pollution and CO2 emissions and anything that we could. So that was kind of our end goal, and I think that's why we ended up going with like the horses and the bikes, even if it wasn't the most easiest decision when it comes down to it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I thought interesting concept, definitely.
Yeah. Another thing I wanna bring up is the Omni processor. Think big. some people might say, oh, that's not possible. Yes, not possible with today's technology. We're talking about 100 years later. You come up with something that's pretty magic. And also your solution have a good balance of the magical future solution and the realistic thing. You know, like a horse carriage, like a bike. I think it's a good combination that you think about both and you're not going to one extreme. I like to comment that being something that stand out to me in solution. Great job.
Thank you so much.
Thumbs up. Well done.
Thank
That brings us to our last company for this afternoon. We have Kaylee, Kylie, Madison, and Osman. It's your turn. Thank you for being patient.
All right, I'm going to share the screen. All right. Our company was named Earthuania. It's located 200 miles east of the Bahamas, and we mainly focused on how to eliminate pollution throughout already existing cities.
What is pollution? Pollution is known as the releasing of contaminants into our environment. These substances can lead detrimental effects and changes on our world. Continuing on, there are many different types of pollution. For example, there is water, noise, air, and land pollution. There are many things that contribute to these types of pollution. Factories, plastic, cars, and more each contribute to pollution. A society without air pollution, no one would have thought was possible 100 years ago. However, this is the reality in Lithuania. Each of us can play our part in order to alleviate the devastating effects of pollution on our environment. The root causes of pollution in today's society. Pollution is caused by solid and liquid particles and certain gases that are released into the air from car and truck exhaust. Factories, dust, pollen, mold, spores, volcanoes, and wildfires. Many of these issues being man-made.
Okay. So Earthuania's ingenious solutions. How can we help? We can use reusable plastic. As we know, reusable plastic. Plastic is a huge contributor to pollution. Rather than creating an unnecessary surplus of plastic, we can reuse it. One option is sanitizing it to reuse it. This would be the case of plastic bottles or we melt it down and remold it into something new. There are many alternate kinds of energy that we can use in a very fluid forms. This includes solar panels, wind turbines, water mills. From there, we can use the natural resources and then reuse those parts for future uses. In addition, we can use factories are known for pollution. However, we can use the energy released from the natural heat production.
So some facts about plastic and its impact on our environment is that 300 million tons of plastic are created each year, and 50% of the plastic is single-use. It's estimated to be 5.25 trillion pieces of plastic in our oceans, and about 8.5 million tons of plastic in our oceans total. And the CEO of Earthuania has been quoted for saying, if plastic isn't being reused, is it really being used at all?
In Lithuania, there are many ways that we can focus on combating plastic pollution. These include sanitizing the plastic for reuse, use them in sustainable ways like DIYs and crafts, and focus on finding new ways for pre-existing plastic.
As we know, there are also different alternate forms of energy. One example of this is solar panels. Solar panels are a clean form of energy that creates pure energy from the sun. In general, they help combat greenhouse gas emissions and reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. Secondly, we could also use wind turbines. Wind turbines are vital as they don't release emissions that pollute the air or water. This alternate form of energy also reduces the amount of electricity generated from fossil fuels. And then finally, we can also use water mills. Traditional water mills have been in use for many, many years due to how easily they produce energy. This type of energy is produced through the running of water through the mill.
Another use of energy that we could consider is geothermal energy. Geothermal energy is the heat within the earth, and it's a natural form of energy that is also clean and eco-friendly. It is very minimal environmental impact, especially when compared to fossil fuel and power plants. And how our company plans to use it is apply it to people's electricity to power, heat, and cool homes or buildings. Another way we're planning on minimizing pollution is green architecture. Green architecture is a method of minimizing the negative effects that built structures have on their surrounding environment. They're designed and constructed with a focus on conserving energy, sourcing eco-friendly and recycled materials, and preserving the biodiversity of the area. And we plan on using it by applying this to all newly built buildings. And although old buildings that aren't using green architecture will still be used, because tearing them down will cause even worse detrimental effects on the environment.
Similar to that, we would also worry about the skeletons of the old factories within the city. For the old factories, we would not demolish them, as this would take too many resources and only further contribute to the pollution. However, we could remodel the factories to fit the new energy sources that we're going to focus on. By remodeling new factories, we don't waste any resources and are able to recycle and reuse the materials that are already there and in use. Finally, another option for the old factories is to use them as group housing. This would allow us to provide housing for the homeless while still saving materials.
All right. Use of natural resources. Natural resources such as coal, natural gas, and oil are used to provide heat, light, and power. We are also able to produce energy by wind turbines and water power. Natural resources are used to make food, fuel, raw materials used during the production of goods, and all of the food that people eat comes from plants or animals.
Distribution and transportation. The use of gasoline-run cars cause emissions that are damaging and irreversible in terms of air pollution. Electric cars do not run on fossil fuels, meaning they can be used in different large vehicles to transport and distribute important goods like food and materials. Other than distributing goods, vehicles are not of dire importance to the people. If they are opting to go somewhere, they can walk or ride animals like horses.
And then just to recap, Lithuania is committed to fighting back against pollution of all different forms. Our main goals include using alternate but natural resources of energy. This includes solar, wind, water, and more. Reusing plastics, using geothermal energy, establishing green architecture, reutilizing the skeletons of old factories, using more natural resources throughout society, and so much more. The possibilities and ideas to put a stop to pollution are endless with Lithuania.
And that's it.
Well done. Excellent job. Questions and comments from our last company of the afternoon? What stuck out to you?
I loved it, and I loved the concept of reusing the factories, and thinking about the people that live in your city. You put that in there as helping the homeless by reusing the factories, so it's not only for reusing the skeletons for new manufacturing, but for the people. So I thought that was great.
I agree, Donna. Other questions and comments for our last group?
I thought it was good that you identified that only 50% of plastics or 50% of plastics are single use, which means you have an opportunity to recycle the other 50%. So that was good. I always like to see good numbers and statistics. So thank you.
Okay. Big thumbs up for all of you today. You did it. The end of our third session. I'm going to ask one question, but I don't want an answer. I want you to answer this question in your head to yourself. What is going to be the one, could be more, but one takeaway that you as students are going to take with you from this process that you've gone through with these Waters employees over the past several weeks? Think about the takeaway. And then I'm going to ask you to forward think, because while our time with Waters is coming to an end, we do have one more session together. And Waters employees, if you're interested in joining, just send me a quick email. We can get you the link. But students, we have one more session coming up on February 2nd with WPI, with employees from their admissions financial aid, and also, most importantly, current students attending WPI and also alum. And they're going to be talking to you about their experiences. And I want you to be able to think about this experience, listen to what they're going to say, and maybe kind of create a bridge. How can this experience that you're going through right now enhance your own college application? And what is that one thing that you're going to take with you that you're going to carry on and grab onto as you continue to navigate and figure out what you want to do for a career? You have plenty of time to think about it. If you have no idea, that's totally fine. Okay? But just something to think about and something to ponder. So again, we have one more session. Any last comments from anybody here before we say goodbye for today? And you will be getting, as long as you have attended the sessions, you will be getting, when this whole process is over, an official certificate as well. Okay, for participation, I'll have the Waters logo, the WPI logo, the BVEF logo. It'll be pretty cool.
All right, well, Erica, I'm just going to say, if the Waters folks aren't going to be here, and if this is the last time BMR folks are going to be on a Zoom with Waters, I just want to express my appreciation for taking their time out of their professional careers to help our kids here. And I feel like our students here got a lot out of it, so greatly appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Stars. And yes, all of our Waters employees, we couldn't have done this without you. You all are definitely what has made this happen, you and the students together. All right, well, everybody enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you.
All right,
Thank
bye-bye.
you.